This week's Grimm Fairy Tales: The Fox and the Horse. A peasant had a faithful horse, which had grown old and could do no more work. So his master would no longer give him anything to eat, and said, "I can certainly make no more use of thee, but still I mean well by thee. If thou provest thyself still strong enough to bring me a lion here, I will maintain thee. But now take thyself away out of my stable." And with that, he chased him into the open country. The horse was sad and went to the forest to seek a little protection there from the weather. Then the fox met him and said, "Why dost thou hang thy head so, and go about all alone?"
"Alas," replied the horse, "avarice and fidelity do not dwell together in one house. My master has forgotten what service I have performed for him for so many years, and because I can no longer plow well, he will give me no more food, and has driven me out."
"Without giving thee a chance?" asked the fox.
"The chance was a bad one," he said. "If I were still strong enough to bring him a lion, he would keep me, but he well knows that I cannot do that."
The fox said, "I will help thee. Just lay thyself down, stretch thyself out, as if thou wert dead, and do not stir." The horse did as the fox desired, and the fox went to the lion, who had his den not far off, and said, "A dead horse is lying outside there. Just come with me. Thou canst have a rich meal." The lion went with him, and when they were both standing by the horse, the fox said, "After all, it is not very comfortable for thee here. I tell thee what, I will fasten it to thee by the tail, and then thou canst drag it into thy cave and devour it in peace." This advice pleased the lion. He lay down, and in order that the fox might tie the horse fast to him, he kept quite quiet. But the fox tied the lion's legs together with the horse's tail, and twisted and fastened all so well and so strongly that no strength could break it. When he had finished his work, he tapped the horse on the shoulder and said, "Pull, white horse, pull." Then up sprang the horse at once and drew the lion away with him. The lion began to roar so that all the birds in the forest flew out in terror. But the horse let him roar, and drew him and dragged him over the country to his master's door. When the master saw the lion, he was of a better mind, and said to the horse, "Thou shalt stay with me, and fare well." And he gave him plenty to eat until he died. The Fox and the Cat. It happened that the cat met the fox in a forest, and as the thought to herself, "He is clever and full of experience, and much esteemed in the world," she spoke to him in a friendly way. "Good day, Mr. Fox. How are you? How is all with you? How are you getting through this dear season?" The fox, full of all kinds of arrogance, looked at the cat from head to foot, and for a long time did not know whether he would give any answer or not. At last he said, "Oh, thou wretched beard cleaner, thou piebald fool, thou hungry mouse hunter, what canst thou be thinking of? Dost thou venture to ask how I am getting on? What hast thou learnt? How many arts dost thou understand?" "I understand but one," replied the cat, modestly. "What art is that?" asked the fox. "When the hounds are following me, I can spring into a tree and save myself." "Is that all?" said the fox. "I am master of 100 arts, and have into the bargain a sack full of cunning. Thou makest me sorry for thee. Come with me. I will teach thee how people get away from the hounds." Just then came a hunter with 4 dogs. The cat sprang nimbly up a tree and sat down on top of it, where the branches and foliage quite concealed her. "Open your sack, Mr. Fox. Open your sack," cried the cat to him. But the dogs had already seized him and were holding him fast. "Oh, Mr. Fox," cried the cat, "you with your 100 arts are left in the lurch. Had you been able to climb like me, you would not have lost your life." The Soul. The fishes had for a long time been discontented because no order prevailed in their kingdom. None of them turned aside for the others, but all swam to the right or the left as they fancied, or darted between those who wanted to stay together, or got into their way, and a strong one gave a weak one a blow with its tail, which drove it away, or else swallowed it up without more ado. "How delightful it would be," said they, "if we had a king who enforced law and justice among us." And they met together to choose for their ruler the one who could cleave through the water most quickly and give help to the weak ones. They placed themselves in rank and file by the shore, and the pike gave the signal with his tail, on which they all started. Like an arrow, the pike darted away, and with him the herring, the gudgeon, the perch, the carp, and all the rest of them. Even the soul swam with them, and hoped to reach the winning place. All at once, the cry was heard, "The herring is first!" "Who is first?" screamed angrily the flat envious soul, who had been left far behind. "Who is first?" "The herring! The herring!" was the answer. "The naked herring?" cried the jealous creature. "The naked herring?" Since that time, the soul's mouth has been at one side for a punishment. The Willow-Wren. In former days, every sound still had its meaning and application. When the smith's hammer resounded, it cried, "Strike away! Strike away!" When the carpenter's plane grated, it said, "Here goes! Here goes!" If the mill wheel began to clack, it said, "Help, Lord God! Help, Lord God!" And if the miller was a cheat and happened to leave the mill, it spoke High German and first asked slowly, "Who is there? Who is there?" And then answered quickly, "The miller, the miller." And at last, quite in a hurry, "He steals bravely, he steals bravely. 3 pecks in a bushel." At this time, the birds also had their own language, which everyone understood. Now it only sounds like chirping, screeching, and whistling, and to some like music without words. It came into the birds' mind, however, that they would no longer be without a ruler, and would choose one of themselves to be their king. One alone amongst them, the green plover, was opposed to this. He had lived free and would die free, and anxiously flying hither and thither, he cried, "Where shall I go? Where shall I go?" He retired into a solitary and unfrequented marsh, and showed himself no more among his fellows. The birds now wished to discuss the matter, and on a fine May morning, they all gathered together from the woods and fields. Eagles and chaffinches, owls and crows, larks and sparrows, How can I name them all? Even the cuckoo came, and the hoopoo, his clerk, who is so called because he has always heard a few days before him, and a very small bird, which as yet had no name, mingled with the band. The hen, which by some accident had heard nothing of the whole matter, was astonished at the great assemblage.
What is going to be done?"
she cackled. But the cock calmed his beloved hen and said,
"Only rich people,"
and had told her that they had on hand. It was decided, however, that the one who could fly the highest should be king. A tree frog, which was sitting among the bushes, when he heard that, cried a warning.
"No, no, no, no,"
because he thought that many tears would be shed because of this. But the crow said,
"Caw-caw,"
and that all would pass off peaceably. It was now determined that on this fine morning they should at once begin to ascend, so that hereafter no one should be able to say,
"I could easily have flown much higher, but the evening came on and I could do no more."
On a given signal, therefore, the whole troop rose up in the air. The dust ascended from the land, and there was tremendous fluttering and whirring and beating of wings, and it looked as if a black cloud was rising up. The little birds were, however, soon left behind. They could go no farther, and fell back to the ground. The larger birds held out longer, but none could equal the eagle, who mounted so high that he could have picked the eyes out of the sun. And when he saw that the others could not get up to him, he thought,
"Why shouldst thou fly still higher? Thou art a king,"
and began to let himself down again. The birds beneath him at once cried to him,
"Thou must be our king. No one has flown so high as thou."
"Except me,"
screamed the little fellow without a name, who had crept into the breast feathers of the eagle. And as he was not at all tired, he rose up and mounted so high that he reached heaven itself. When, however, he had gone as far as this, he folded his wings together and called down with clear and penetrating voice,
"I am king! I am king! Thou our king!"
cried the birds angrily.
"Thou hast compassed it by tricking and cunning."
So they made another condition. He should be king who could go down lowest in the ground. How the goose did flap about with its broad breast when it was once more on the land. How quickly the cock scratched a hole. The duck came off the worst of all, for she leapt into a ditch, but sprained her legs, and waddled away to a neighboring pond, crying,
"Cheating! Cheating!"
The little bird without a name, however, sought out a mouse hole, slipped down into it, and cried out of it with his small voice,
"I am king! I am king! Thou our king!"
cried the birds, still more angrily.
"Dost thou think thy cunning shall prevail?"
They determined to keep him a prisoner in the hole and starve him out. The owl was placed as a sentinel in front of it, and was not to let the rascal out if she had any value for her life. When evening was come, all the birds were feeling very tired after exerting their wings so much, so they went to bed with their wives and children. The owl alone remained standing by the mouse hole, gazing steadfastly into it with her great eyes. In the meantime, she too had grown tired, and thought to herself,
"You might certainly shut one eye. You will still watch with the other, and the little miscreant shall not come out of his hole."
So she shut one eye, and with the other looked straight at the mouse hole. The little fellow put his head out and peeped, and wanted to slip away, but the owl came forward immediately, and he drew his head back again. Then the owl opened the one eye again and shut the other, intending to shut them in turn all through the night. But when she next shut the one eye, she forgot to open the other, and as soon as both her eyes were shut, she fell asleep. The little fellow soon observed that and slipped away. From that day forth, the owl was never dared to show herself by daylight, for if she does, the other birds chase her and pluck her feathers out. She only flies out by night, but hates and pursues mice because they make such ugly holes. The little bird, too, is very unwilling to let himself be seen, because he is afraid it will cost him his life if he is caught. He steals about in the hedges, and when he is quite safe, he sometimes cries, "I am king!" And for this reason, the other birds call him in mockery, "King of the hedges." No one, however, was so happy as the lark at not having to obey the little king. As soon as the sun appears, she ascends high in the air and cries, "Ah, how beautiful that is! Beautiful that is! Beautiful, beautiful! Ah, how beautiful that is!" The Willow-Wren and the Bear. Once in summertime, the bear and the wolf were walking in the forest, and the bear heard a bird singing so beautifully that he said, "Brother Wolf, what bird is it that sings so well?" "That is the king of birds," said the wolf, "before whom we must bow down." It is, however, in reality the willow-wren.
If that's the case, said the bear, I should very much like to see his royal palace. Come, take me thither.
"That is not done quite as you seem to think," said the wolf. "You must wait until the queen comes."
Soon afterwards, the queen arrived with some food in her beak, and the Lord King came too, and they began to feed their young ones. The bear would have liked to go at once, but the wolf held him back by the sleeve and said,
"No, you must wait until the Lord and Lady Queen have gone away again."
So they observed the hole in which was the nest and trotted away. The bear, however, could not rest until he had seen the royal palace, and when a short time had passed, again went to it. The king and queen had just flown out, so he peeped in and saw 5 or 6 young ones lying in it.
"Is that the royal palace?"
cried the bear.
"It is a wretched palace, and you are not king's children. You are disreputable children."
When the young wrens heard that, they were frightfully angry and screamed,
"No, that we are not. Our parents are honest people. Bear, thou wilt have to pay for that."
The bear and the wolf grew uneasy and turned back and went into their holes. The young willow-wrens, however, continued to cry and scream, and when their parents again brought food, they said,
"We will not so much as touch one fly's leg. No, not if we were dying of hunger, until you have settled whether we are respectable children or not. The bear has been here and has insulted us."
Then the old king said,
"Be easy, he shall be punished."
And he at once flew with the queen to the bear's cave and called in,
"Old growler, why hast thou insulted my children? Thou shalt suffer for it. We will punish thee by a bloody war."
Thus war was announced to the bear, and all four-footed animals were summoned to take part in it. Oxen, asses, cows, deer, and every other animal the earth contained. And the willow-wren summoned everything which flew in the air, not only birds, large and small, but midges and hornets, bees and flies had to come. When the time came for the war to begin, the willow-wren sent out spies to discover who was the enemy's commander-in-chief. The gnat, who was the most crafty, flew into the forest where the enemy was assembled and hid herself beneath a leaf of the tree where the watchword was to be given. There stood the bear, and he called the fox before him and said, "Fox, thou art the most cunning of animals. Thou shalt be general and lead us."
"Good," said the fox. "But what signal shall we agree upon?"
No one knew that, so the fox said,
"I have a fine long bushy tail, which almost looks like a plum of red feathers. When I lift my tail up quite high, all is going well and you must charge. But if I let it hang down, run away as fast as you can."
When the gnat had heard that, she flew away again and revealed everything with the greatest minuteness to the willow-wren. When day broke and the battle was to begin, all the four-footed animals came running up with such a noise that the earth trembled. The willow-wren also came flying through the air with his army with such a humming and whirring and swarming that everyone was uneasy and afraid, and on both sides they advanced against each other. But the willow-wren sent down the hornet with orders to get beneath the fox's tail and sting it with all his might. When the fox felt the first sting, he started so that he drew up one leg with the pain, but he bore it and still kept his tail high in the air. At the second sting, he was forced to put it down for a moment. At the third, he could hold out no longer and screamed out and put his tail between his legs. When the animals saw that, they thought all was lost and began to fly, each into his hole, and the birds had won the battle. The king and queen flew home to their children and cried, "Children, rejoice, eat and drink to your heart's content. We have won the battle." But the young wren said,
"We will not eat. The bear must come to the nest and beg for pardon and say that we are honorable children before we will do that."
Then the willow-wren flew to the bear's hole and cried, "Growler, thou art to come to the nest to my children and beg their pardon, or else every rib of thy body shall be broken." So the bear crept thither in the greatest fear and begged their pardon. And now at last the young wrens were satisfied and sat down together and ate and drank and made merry till quite late into the night.